Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Positive Traction with your host, Coach Henry. That is me. And today, as they say, Pappy and I, that's what I call him. He is known to the world as Steve Harris, but to me, he will always be Pappy. This is a long awaited episode, part one of many, because we've known each other for a couple of decades. I'm going to leave it at that, but we are, as you can see us, we're like a fine wine. If you can't see us on the podcast, take our word. We're looking good. On that being said, Pappy, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Henry. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I don't know what episode you guys are up to. Congratulations for, getting this podcast
Thank
up and
you.
running.
Thank
It
you.
was something you talked about for a while, and to
Yeah.
see it actually in action and happening. I listened to the first few. I'm not sure. I've probably listened to about 6 so far.
Well, thank you.
But I know I was supposed to be like episode 3 and episode 5. So I don't know what episode.
Third time's a charm.
What episode you're up to now?
Yeah, so just, Pappy's in the entertainment business, and we'll get into that. So schedules, life happens. Even today was an ordeal, but we made it work. But it just adds to the flavor. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, Pappy, was because honestly, it will be part one of many, because I think that there's so many things to unpack with you. So today, I want to just do a little summary overall of it to give people a taste of what's in your head and our friendship, because there's a lot. And part of this, the whole point of the show is positive traction, kind of taking our life, in this case, your life as my guest, how people can relate to it, how you've turned things around, some of the struggles you've been through, real talk. And at the end of the day, keep moving forward, right? So with that being said, how about we hear from you a little bit about us, how we came to know each other a little bit. That way people can kind of set a little bit of a foundation on us, and then we'll kind of go back and forth and let it flow for a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny you ask that, because I always have to explain when people go, "How do you know Henry Castro?" I'm like, well, so we met via my ex-wife. That would definitely be the connector.
Yes.
Because you were in high school best friends with her younger brother,
Yeah.
George.
Yeah, Georgie.
So my ex-wife Kim,
Yeah.
her younger brother George. You and George were best friends in high school, and I had heard stories about you for years. And it wasn't until I was relocating to Los Angeles, and I guess that's part of the story of being here today.
Yeah.
That when I was really relocating to Los Angeles, that when I can't even say landed here, when I dragged my broken down car across the state lines into LA, the person that provided refuge and unconditional love and the most purest form of friendship and just looking out for somebody that you never met. Had you heard about me before that?
No. No.
You didn't.
No, because George and I, at that point, we still stayed in touch. We still talked. But, you were, like you said, his sister's husband at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yes, I your name had popped up, but it wasn't like George and I talked all the time at that point. But different on that, because I think some of the stories you heard were some of my crazy high school stories. But I don't know if we're going to get those today, but we'll definitely get in one of our shows. But no, thank you for your nice words, Pappy. But to me, George has and always will be a special person in my life. And when he vouches for someone, and Kim, especially back then, and here comes Pappy, and you're out here literally trying to work, and but back then trying to make the American dream happen, right? Your story of coming out here to Hollywood. So why don't we just kind of preface a little bit about kind of what you do, so that they can, for those that don't know, can have a little bit of content. And I want to get into a couple stories. I think it's just a lighthearted part of some of our stories that have allowed us, again, literally decades later, to not only just stay friends, but truly cross over in so many aspects. So I appreciate that.
I was thinking of, like, what would you call a brand this episode? And while I never positioned or even rationalized in my head. But at that time, when I met you and had no place to go, I was technically homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
from homelessness to Hollywood.
Hey, team, I like that. We just got our tagline for this show: from homeless. Oh my gosh, it's been long. Homelessness to Hollywood.
Yes.
Well, Pappy, let's just start with that. But before I go that, can you tell them a little bit about what you do? Don't name drop yet. Not that you're name dropping, only because I want them. We're gonna go to there, but just kind of like, what do you do? What brought you to Hollywood?
I work in film and TV. I started out my career directing and producing music videos and documentaries. And I moved to Hollywood, the Hollywood dream to work in scripted television.
Yeah.
And that was my first adventure of moving to Hollywood started in 1994. And I was here from 94 to 97. And then came back permanently in 2012. But the entire time, and even I think I'd started visiting Los Angeles in 1987. So I've been back and forth to LA pretty much since I was a teenager.
Yeah. Well, I remember back then, Pappy, again, we started off some great stories, you and I, because at that time I was owning a particular business. I just owned
you had the gyms. You had like 2 or 3 locations.
Yeah. But entrepreneurship in itself, and I remember us getting all kinds of creative ways to keep making things move.
and I worked at your gym.
Yeah.
Because that was one of my first job in high school. I was a instructor at was Jack Lane Health Spa at the time.
Yeah.
So that was one of the skills that I had being a personal trainer and waiting tables when I moved to LA. Those were the other 2 skills other than being a filmmaker that I had.
Yeah, but part of your story and part of what I wanted to do on the show as well is because look, you did what you had to do to continue your dream alive, right? And that's part of it. And other people hear it, but I feel there's a lot of relatable things for people to understand that. You had a mission, and your mission, you stayed on point to that, right? And I think that's part of why I've always respected you, because you went back and forth. Your kids are over here. I mean, you've been all over the place, but you never have taken your eye off the ball. That has been you have been constant in it. It might have been 30% of your life a couple times, but you had to make money other areas. But you have never taken your eye off the ball, and I think that's just so respectful from me to you. Yeah.
I actually got a job working in Hollywood while working in your gym. So I originally came out to work on a film. My car broke down with my ex-wife 2 times in the route here. So by the time I arrived in Los Angeles, I was 4 days late for reporting to set. And when I got to set, was my friend's first film project that he was doing. And so it was a little bit slight nepotism of me getting, but I was qualified for it.
Right, you're just 4 days late, basically.
And when I got to the set that morning, there were other friends from college that had jobs on the set too. And if you've ever been to a film set, craft services starts at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Yeah. So you show up at like 5:36, you get your food, you start prepping, and then the above the line producers and directors, they don't show up till like 8:39. So between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock, everything was gravy.
Yeah.
At 8:45, I get called into the producer's trailer, and she's asked me how I'm doing, tells me she is happy that I made it. I tell her I appreciate that. And she also acknowledges the fact that this is Hollywood. It's a very tough town, and there's a lot of competition. And the reality is that I've been replaced and that I was fired. Welcome to Hollywood. You're fired.
Wow.
So when I had traveled out with my wife at the time and 2 kids, and both kids were under 3 years old.
Z's.
Yes, the Z's.
The Z's.
Z1, Zoe was like 3, and Zach was like a year and a half.
Yeah, it's crazy. Z's.
I'm here with a wife, 2 kids, moved out for a job that now I was fired from within the first
And,
48 hours.
and
of
again,
being
this is
here.
why when I say there's going to be different parts to us, there is, because here's what I want to unpack in that beginning. You were at that point, what? You were in your
I was in my late 20s.
late 20s.
Yeah.
Wife of a couple years?
Yeah, at least Zoe was 3, so at least 4 years, 3 or 4
Okay.
years, yeah.
With 2 kids, doing the American dream, cross country, going to Hollywood, the whole thing. How you doing, Steve? This is what the producer said. Hey, good. Thanks for asking. Thinking she's all tough work. Bottom line, you're done.
Yes.
Like, wow. So that now, I want to live there for a moment because I want people that are watching or listening to this to kind of like understand that what's got you to the end, and we'll give them a snippet of where you are today, is persistence, believing in yourself, tenacity, and grit. But that started with your first out here with your family, because I can only imagine what your wife at that time, let alone the travel, car breaking down, let's get here 4 days late. You're finally here, ready to go to work. Tell me what you can remember. You don't have to give me the details. I'm sure it wasn't great, but how were you? Like, I mean, jeepers, deflated, lost. It's a lot, and I only want to take you there because I think it's so important for anyone that's pursuing this dream of any kind of business that this is real talk.
Yeah, that was definitely a low point, and one of the things with life is that we as people could try to work to be as consistent as possible, but within that consistency are highs and lows. That's just life.
Yeah.
So, everything will pass, whether it's a high or a low. Nothing stays the way it constantly is. So just knowing that I was going to stick it out and do my best, and what did that look like at the time? And at the time, that meant my wife going back to live with her parents while I slept on your sofa.
Yeah, yeah,
and saved up money and just continued to work.
Yeah.
Or try to work. And the first jobs, after losing that job within 2 days of being here, I took a job at this place called Technicolor. I think the brand exists, but I don't know what they do anymore. But I was working there in the product plant. They were making CDs.
Yeah.
And then on the days off, because it was like you worked like 12-hour days, so you only worked. 1 week was 4 days, the other week was 3 days. So on those days off that I had, I would come down and work on my friend's TV show. And then mornings on the weekends, I was working in your gym. So I was working 3 jobs at the same time.
Wow.
And sleeping on your sofa.
Yeah. And again, and that's why that's why I know I wanted people, because for me, sometimes, especially today, people don't realize what has allowed the Gen Xers and even some of the millennials and the Zs that are seeing it right is that grit. I keep coming back to that, because think about what you're saying. 3 jobs, deflated. Now you're separated with your family. Because now Kim's on her way back.
Yes.
Like you said, it just wasn't the pan out. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. And when you felt that things were starting to turn, at what point did you feel this is going to be worth it? Because I know at that point you're just, what's keeping you going? What, without giving up on this dream? Without, I mean,
there were little pops along the way. One was while working your gym. I can't remember what her last name, but she went by Will, and her husband's name was Mark, and they had a company called Will Mark Entertainment, and they had a show on, I think it was Disney, called, I can't remember the name of it, but Brandy was on it. It was like Hollywood Lives, it was called.
okay.
Brandy was on it, Jamie Kennedy, and this is 1994. So
Right,
this was,
right.
it was about following a reality show about following the lives of these people as they were coming up. Incubus, Brandy,
Wow.
and Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah.
And she was a member at your gym, and I was helping her work out, and we just like kind of bonded. And in one of the middle of her workouts that I was doing for her, she was asking me questions, and she's like, "So, what are you doing here in the gym? You know TV and film. Here's my number, and you should come to the office." And I literally went from being a PA to directing episodes within 3 weeks.
Wow. See, I love it. And I guess for me, just during that time, knowing you how I know you, Pappy, I think that you've always had an infectious, the laugh that you just did, your attitude, you're easy to get along with, but you are good at what you do. And I love that. And I think that one of the themes in today's guests, that was a common theme of these particular guests, I know, is they believe in themselves. But in you, and I would think, you're betting on yourself. You're betting on you. You're like, I can do this. Now you sitting here in the gym, humble, and you then get an opportunity. And like you said, from getting coffee to like you're directing
episodes. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And see, those are the tidbits that help you. So now just to kind of bring people into more relevance for a moment on that, what would you say, whether anyone that's trying to pursue something, what is something that you feel is your takeaway into the Pappy, knowing what you know now? If someone's kind of in that spot, what are your words of encouragement? What is your tip or hack that they can continue with? And then we're going to talk a little bit about today and where life has you now.
Well, number one hack is doing what you love, because there's going to be ups and downs and hard times, and you're going to have to figure stuff out.
Yeah, yeah.
So you should love what you're doing, because if there's nothing satisfying about figuring out something that you don't enjoy doing in the first place.
It's bad enough if it's something hard, but then if you don't even like it, it's like
it's going to be hard. Whatever you do is going to be hard.
Yeah.
So it should be something you enjoy.
I love that.
Number two, which could possibly be number one, is to always keep learning. So whatever that space is that you're in, how could you add on to it and learn and stay ahead of the curve within that discipline of what it is that you are,
right.
Whatever it is you're doing. Filmmaking completely changed from when I started in the 80s and 90s. Don't shoot. It was the dream to shoot on 35. I remember when I was shooting videos on 35 millimeter film. No, it's all video camera now. Everything is all digital.
Yeah. But like you said an important part of your tip 2 or hack 2 is keep learning. I think it's so important, because
always stay on top.
I think that's probably the number one mistake that especially Gen Xers do. It's the way I've always done it. It's the way it is. It's it doesn't mean it's right. So okay, and
then for me, my personal hack has been, while continuing to keep learning, to embrace the elements of technology within that learning sphere. So from editing to content to so for example, I still work in the content space. I started out directing music videos, and documentaries, which led me into doing unscripted, a lot of reality TV. So I was doing reality TV in the 90s.
Yeah.
So
when it wasn't even reality TV, it was like filming somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as that wave was coming, like being able to visualize, okay, this is something. They don't call it documentaries anymore, or at that time it was a new version or a new lane of docs, and that was reality TV, and I was at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
Went from, like I said, PA to cameraman to director to showrunner to network executive.
Yeah.
But always learning and working in all the different disciplines on the set, from even doing in post-production. So then after I got my network jobs, I was at Discovery Channel for a year and a half, A&E for 6.5 years, and the last 12 and counting running Marlon Wayne's unscripted division. It was, what is the next wave and next version of that? So TikTok, Instagram, before all those happened, all those even existed, it was people being able to become their own content creators. I mean, look at you now with your podcast.
Yeah.
You're a content creator. It's all about creating content,
Right.
and branding yourself and putting your message and material out there. So in whatever format that is, you don't need, as a filmmaker, I don't need $50 or $300,000 budget to do a production anymore.
Right.
I've got my cell phone.
Yeah.
And edit system on my laptop. Like it's, but within the content space, expanding into social media and digital content, but then also experiential, which 99% of my peers are not in that space. They buy tickets for it. They use it for some within the marketing and promotion, but they don't really understand what is the experiential space. And you had a chance to visit Sneakertopia, which is a physical version of a TV show concept.
Yeah. Well, and I love it. And again, that's what's you've evolved for so many different things. But what I've seen personally is your constant growth, adjustments, maneuvering. So I appreciate you sharing that. So now one thing I want now, let's bring them what you're doing today. So that way now you'll name drop, not for the sake of the name, but more for, how far you've come and the grind now, different grind, just like I'm grinding now, different grind. There's grind when you're starting off. There's grind when you're in the middle. There's all different levels. And maybe that's not the right word for it, but there's a hustle. There's always a hustle.
Yes.
Especially if you're in the Mecca, you're in the Hollywood world. There is no safe zone.
And I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to stay here in Hollywood. It's been fun.
Yeah.
I like it. I enjoy it. But, the work, you could be wherever to do the work.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, right? I mean, even the movie you and I talked about, they're wanting to do it in Wyoming, and there's all over the place. Yeah. So technology is definitely, and especially with AI and everything, there's a lot can be done, right? So on that note, for right now, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, some of the things that you think would be an inspiration, some of the things that you have had to figure out, some of the challenges and some of the victories. I think that's, I know I threw a lot at you.
Well, and to latch on to identify what you said, like not to name drop. And the thing is Marlon and I have been friends for 35 years.
Yeah.
It was his film that I moved out to Los Angeles for, that I showed up late and ended up on your sofa.
Yeah.
But he and I maintain our friendship and unofficial working relationship evolved into working together also.
Yeah.
So that's been part of the consistency.
Yeah.
And within that consistency of, while he's grown from being a comedic actor to dramatic actor to doing stand-up and sitcoms and writing, so growing from being a actor to a writer and a producer, we have kind of both parallel have done those same things. I mean, one of the very ironic things, so when I work with Marlon, working with him, creative directing his social media and digital, and as well as currently in development to do a Wayne's experiential.
Okay. And I know he had a show for a little bit. Y'all did, and that was a great show. I know
the Marlon show.
Yeah.
Did you ever come to set?
No, but I love that show. I did like that show. I know his brothers have another show going on right now.
Big Papa's House. Yes.
Yeah. But I do know that there's some things that but it was successful. They couldn't come to terms, or whatever. But now that you're in that world and you've been in that world for quite a while, what is something that you would say is a hack that you would tell someone coming up, specifically in this industry, that to watch out for? Like you said, times have changed. It used to be just hard work and be at the right place at the right time, know the right people. It's almost like that's not good enough anymore. So what would you say is, and what is this? I mean, all credit's due. You've lasted, you've endured, and you're still here. You're still in the mix. I mean, you flew in from a tour for today. I mean, not for this, but you
pretty much for this.
Yeah. Well, you came in. Thank you.
I was going to come home regardless, but yes.
Yeah, thank you. But like, what is something, again? Because I think that part of your journey and part of the show is for people to really take from that. Like, what is something that can inspire? Also, kind of like a little sign, like, hey, just keep an eye out. What would you say that is?
I mean, I follow you on social media, and we text consistently, and keeping that positivity, keeping that belief in self, making time for meditation and personal time, your own time for just going for a walk for a half hour.
Yeah.
There's grind, yes, but there needs to be a balance within that grind.
Yes. Yes.
So, find what you love, find balance in doing what you love.
Yeah.
And always keep evolving on top of that.
I love that. So now, again, without saying too much out, but how do you see this next season of life? We're ending, not sure when this will air, but let's just say we're in a transition of years and time. And so, like, what do you think is next for you? How does that look without putting anything out? I know you're, like, what are you willing to share that you can look forward to this next stage of life for you? Because you've accomplished a lot. You're still a young guy. You look good, but you're ready. I know in my heart and our friendship of decades together, you're ready to do your best work. And that doesn't mean like, let's say in Hollywood, but like the best Pappy to hit the world. But you've been an entrepreneur, sneakerpropia, all the things. So put all that together. What excites you for this next stage of your life?
Well, I have to say, the moments that have reflection that I look back and go, I really like doing that with those people that way. I think it really comes down to family and close friends.
Okay.
So identifying, like you say, what's the next stage? The opportunities that allow me to work with my close friends and family that I enjoy being around and working with.
Yeah.
That's, if I could do that, that's my goal on all the different film, TV, entrepreneurial opportunities. It's that little click, and let's just ride this out to the sunset.
And I love that, and that's why I'm excited to. I'm gonna leave you guys hanging on that. What you and I are gonna talk about off camera, because we'll do that for episode 2 with us, and that's just, I feel we're on the same page with that. Like, how are we gonna take these amazing years, let's call it our dog years, and make them into a thoroughbred, right? And that's how I feel it's gonna happen, because you said in the beginning you got to do something you love. So now what you're identifying is you still love this industry, but you want to evolve it more around the people, the family, the friends, and make it work for you. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Make it work for them. Like, it's really, that gives me joy in being able to have them working, my family and close friends also working too.
Well, even I remember when I went to go see Sneakerpropia, and I saw Zach there. Your son, that was, I'm sure, such a neat feeling to have that. Now, where's he now?
He's in Virginia at the campground.
Okay, he's at the campground. Okay.
When we drive home, I'll tell you about my next steps about.
I like it.
The plans for the campground. Definitely implementing more tech into the space.
Yeah. I love it, Pappy. I love it. Well, good. But there's one more thing on that, on episode 1, because again, there's so many things that I want to stay contained, but I am conscious of the time for us today. But I think one of the things that I've gotten from you is your willingness to adjust and adapt and overcome a lot of challenges. So what would you say one of the biggest challenges in recent, could be in the last year or 2, that you've had, and how did you overcome it? Is there something that stands out to you out of that question that you're willing to share? At least now.
That's a great question. I mean, it's not, and that's a great end of the year question. You kind of caught me off guard, because I feel like I'm constantly putting fires out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to help you out with this part to give you time. Is I believe in something we implement in our teams across the board, Brownstone and all that, is diffuse. And people go, what do you mean by diffuse? Diffuse means that the first thing in a fire, you don't ask where it came from. Typically, you put it out. Typically, depending, but you diffuse it. So usually when you're dealing with people, you want to diffuse the problem. From there, you want to identify and then solve the problem, right? So you diffuse it, you solve it, and then you prevent it. And I say that because, well, how did we get here? Oh, well, that spark. Okay, well, can we have avoided that? So I think as we're going into the end of the year, like you said, and that question I asked you is, it sounds like to me like you're really looking at family, you're looking at priorities, and what I feel your head moving is, how can I get all my worlds to work around what's best for my family?
Yeah, I literally have the next 24 months of projects lined up.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
it's about putting everything from merchandising to opening more Sneakertopia locations. To and when I say merchandise, I'm not just talking about like Sneakertopia brand. I'm
Right,
talking
you're
about
talking
even Marlon's.
Marlon's,
merch.
yeah.
Like just this whole.
And I've seen I've seen how much love he has for you, the respect you guys have. I really had a good time. We were all together last time. He got deep. He got deep on us, sharing some good deep stuff, and even some clips I've seen lately. One of the things you sent me was him getting deep, talking spiritual, getting crazy.
Yeah, people don't necessarily initially correlate Marlon to the seriousness, but when they do see those clips and when those people do share it with them, they're like, oh, that is something only a person who has experienced being the youngest of 10 children from one of the most famous families in the world could drop a gem like that.
Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying and I mean it when I say episode 1 of many is because we haven't even touched the surface on some of our crazy stories, some of the things we've been through. But I also knew that conscious of time today. But that's why I want to get at least for people to kind of to understand a little bit of us and our foundation, our friendship. I love that you shared, and I mean, Pappy, again, decades later, you are a true friend. A couple funny stories just to keep it lighthearted. How many times you come to Vegas or wherever I am, birthday parties? We have some stories. Again, I'm going to leave people hanging.
We've had some good times.
We've had some really good times. That Vegas was one of my favorite ones, And we've seen each other through a lot, and I appreciate our friendship. But this is your shot now. You're used to being the director. You're used to being in that seat a lot.
Oh, what's my shot?
Your shot is to ask me whatever you want, because at the end of each show, everyone gets a chance to ask me something, because you've been nothing but sitting there and being beautiful about our interaction. So what may I answer that you think my listeners would want to know?
Wow, that's a great question, Henry. And to only narrow it down to one, because you're such a loving and caring and giving human being that as long as I know you and people that I know you or just met you could attest to.
Thank you.
So to ask this question, it should not detract at all, because we haven't touched upon how much of a lot.
Yeah.
But the first thing that I would say has always how I've identified Henry is like one of the best salespeople in the world. Complete contrast of like you're the most loving brother, but you are I'm from the gym days to the just dude to you went from the gym to the boxing version of it to a couple of other things in between there, and now in real estate. But you're a great sales, and it's not. When you hear salesperson, it feels like it doesn't always come across, because there has to be you know why it doesn't come across that way, because people don't understand that some people are actually doing a service that they love and are doing good for the people that they are providing that service to. They're not selling.
Right. Yeah. I'm only laughing, Pappy, because literally the conversation I was having with part of our team right before you got here, literally, not kind of, not would have, was on I am the worst salesman in the world. But let me tell you, to what you just ended, though, and I receive it. It's because I'm not selling something like a product, like, hey, buy my water. I'm merely sharing my passion for something I believe in, right? So, but I love how you said it, because see, like at the gyms, I love helping people feel better, right? It evolved to boxing because I felt like, it was my way to help people, another form of fitness. Then when I got to real estate, I sold the fact that I get to help my family change its legacy of not having money, right? For a long time, we just didn't have money, but we made it work. And I'm not saying that, oh my gosh, no, but I definitely have done well. But what it was for me on your compliment, which I receive, is learning to see that passion and how I can make it work to bless people. right? And when I saw the opportunities, I wanted to build teams around that. And even now with the show and other things we're doing, it's all coming into a beautiful triangle, I call it, between the vibey world, what you and I spoke about a year ago.
Yes.
I mean, way before that, but a year ago it was really starting to take shape. And now we're launching it next month, right? The podcast, like you said. And my passion is what drives me. Meeting people like you and people getting a chance to hear a little bit about your story, how we work that together for the greater good. So no, I appreciate that. And I know the word by itself is not always like, oh, salesmanship, but no, I get it. Like you said, it was really taking that and making something great from it. And I appreciate that. More of a statement question that you did. Yeah. But no, that's why I want to do many episodes, because there's already a list of other things. And when I talk to the team, I want to keep it down to this, because we're trying to keep these at 40, 45, and we've already hit it. We've already hit it with Pappy. But that's how much of our love and friendship. But that's why I want to get into the next stage in part 2 and leave people hanging a little bit, is to break down steps that have helped us. Take some of the things that you and I can relate. There's been some hard times in our lives together, things that we've shared in friendship. And, being guys, it's not always easy to be vulnerable and being real. And you and I have a very unique opportunity of saying, man, we've decades. But to this day, I talked to George. The last time I talked to George is you put him on FaceTime. It
was his Mother's Day weekend. Yeah.
And I've always loved Georgie and the family, but this is the friendship that I'm grateful that we've evolved from. With that being said, thank you, Pappy.
Of course, Henry.
We finally got third time's a charm, but now we're going to make it fly with everything else. So, guys, I know you enjoyed Steve Harris, a.k.a. Pappy. You're going to see a couple more episodes with us, because we haven't even scratched the surface of all the things we can share that have helped us become who we are. And you better mark our words that he has 2 years of projects lined up, but I know in my heart it's going to be the best 2 years are going to set him out for the rest of his life. So with that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in for another episode of Positive Traction. And until next time, God bless.
God bless.